details on the upcoming Disney's Villains Land, a possible 5th park, and new hotels coming to Walt Disney World. Hello everybody and welcome. Today we are going to be going through new uncovered details about the Disney Villains Land, including the planned attractions, in-park hotels, and also recently filed permits indicate additional expansions coming soon, and a 5th park might be closer than we think. Ever since the D23 Expo, Disney Villains Land has been a hot topic of conversations, but very little is actually known about this land until now. I've been digging through a lot of information and some recently filed permits, and I'm finding out a lot of really cool information that I want to go through. About a month before D23, Disney filed the Master Stormwater Plan, which is exactly what it sounds like. It deals with all things water related when it comes to construction. It's usually the very first thing that a company will file when they start to think about doing construction in different areas. And the 407 Basin area is the area around Magic Kingdom. There are literally thousands and thousands of pages of PDFs and images and graphics and all sorts of legal speak that talk about the work that they're going to be doing in this space. Now, we haven't seen them break ground on anything as of yet, but it does look like they are thinking about expanding in these areas around Magic Kingdom. The official documentation reads, "This is to upgrade development areas in the 407 Basin area of Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Master Draining System. Development of a concept and template for permitting future construction within the basin." So as you can imagine, this is very exciting, especially when we think about the actual spaces. We're going to dig very deeply into this information a little bit later, but I first want to start with the Disney Villains Land and what we actually know about this space and what are some of the planned attractions that are going to be coming. So first things first, we only have one piece of concept art for Disney Villains Land. You saw it, you've seen it in D23's Expo, but I want to dig very deeply into it. I've got a high resolution version of this image, and the very first thing that catches my eye is the Maleficent tower, the dragon there, that particular space, the castle that's in the background, sort of in the top center of this graphic. This is definitely Maleficent's castle, also referred to as Forbidden Mountain if you're familiar with the show, with the cartoon and the movies. It looks exactly like what has been portrayed in the cartoons, so it is definitely Maleficent's castle, 100%. And I'm expecting this castle to be sort of the marquee item, sort of the thing that draws your eye, just like in Pandora, the big giant floating rocks that are in the Pandora area. I think this is going to be similar to that. They will most definitely be taking advantage of sort of the trickery, the vertical trickery and horizontal trickery that they use to make things look bigger than they really are. You're familiar with that if you look at the above the Tangled restrooms, if you look at the Beauty and the Beast sort of dining experience with the castle there. You can see that space. I'm assuming it's going to be something similar to that. I don't think it'll be a huge, enormous castle, but I do think it will make it feel like it's pretty big, and it'll be something that draws your eye. But right alongside with that, a little bit top left, a little bit, if you kind of move down to the left a little bit, you see the giant dragon there, Maleficent as the dragon, and you see this giant roller coaster there. Now, that is definitely giving me Diagon Alley vibes. That's giving me the dragon above Gringotts, sort of the bank there with the fire breathing. It's interesting to me that they made this choice. They don't really have things like that in any of their other parks. It does feel very much Universal and Epic Universe to me, giving this sort of like energy or thing that's going to draw your attention throughout the day with sort of the fire shooting out of the dragon. I do think it will be a practical effect of fire shooting out of the dragon's mouth, similar to Gringotts, maybe on a timer. It's interesting because if you look at Epic Universe and Dark Universe, they have that sort of burning blade tavern spinning windmill thing that's going to catch fire every once in a while, just like Gringotts and the dragon there. I think we're going to get something similar there from Maleficent. really looks cool to me, but it does seem like they're taking a page from Universal's playbook on that one. As far as the roller coaster itself goes, this is interesting. So they're over there on the sort of left side of the screen, the image, the roller coaster looks really kind of crazy. It looks pretty intense. I don't think it's going to end up being like a Velocicoaster experience. I think it's going to probably be more like Raging Spirits maybe from Tokyo Sea, or maybe even another Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, maybe a little bit more intense than that. But just basically you can kind of see those ride cars. They almost feel like carts, if you will, like mine carts, or bigger, sort of larger, like barrels almost. And what has people talking is the potential that there's going to be 2 roller coasters there, because if you look at the bottom center of the screen, you can see an additional roller coaster and track there. I personally think this is probably going to be the same roller coaster that sort of weaves throughout the park. It's hard to tell because the track itself does look a little bit different than the track that's up in the top left-hand corner of the graphic, but I still think it's probably going to be the same, and it is one coaster. The ride vehicles themselves kind of look similar. It's hard to tell because it's in motion and it's kind of blurry. This is not underwater. This is sort of a cavernous area. I'm thinking like Hades or Ursula maybe area of this particular roller coaster. And then you see sort of the waterfalls that are cascading down the cavern. So I feel like it's going to be a roller coaster that sort of starts in the mountainous areas of Maleficent's castle and those mountains there, but then also goes down into sort of a cavernous area, which is really going to be interesting to see how they pull off, because of the fact that you can't dig in Florida. If you're familiar with Florida at all, you can't really dig. There's no basements in houses. In order for there to actually be an underground for Magic Kingdom, they actually had to build up. So they actually landscaped, they moved all this dirt, moved all this stuff in order to actually build an underground for Magic Kingdom. So Magic Kingdom, the park, actually sits on the second story, if you will, of the park. The first story is basically the underground, where all of the trash receptacles and employees can kind of move freely throughout the park. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pull this off. If they're going to do some sort of underground cavernous appearance type thing there with this particular roller coaster, they're going to have to build upwards, which is going to be interesting how they attack the sight lines, because if they build up, it's going to be really easy to see Villains Land from anywhere within Magic Kingdom. Maybe even from the entrance or from the monorail, you're going to be able to see it because it's going to be so high up in order to pull off this cavernous effect. Now, Epic Universe has done this with How to Train Your Dragon Land. They sort of built it up. And then as you kind of go in, you can look down and there's this sort of fire drill waterscape down there, an attraction. It looks like it goes down. The roller coaster goes down in there. So they were able to pull it off. I'm sure Disney can do the same thing. But they're going to have to build up, and I'm not sure how they're going to pull it off with the sight lines with Magic Kingdom, because it'll be kind of odd if you can see Villains Land from anywhere in the park. I think it'll kind of break the visage, if you will. Now over on the far left of the screen, you can kind of see, if you dig in a little bit deep, you can maybe see some lights and some almost like rings on the ground, these light up rings, and maybe some water. So this seems like it's going to be some play pads area, sort of an area you can stroll through, and it has some cool little light up things on the ground, maybe some waterscapes happening there. A little bit further back, you can also maybe see a structure which could be part of the roller coaster, sort of front visage, if you will, but it also could potentially be restaurants areas or shopping. It's hard to tell, but I think there will be something over in that space more than just sort of the walking path. As you enter from the right side into Villains Land, you can clearly see a lot of the structures. It almost feels like a town, if you will, and the town could be sort of a spooky town outside or around Maleficent's castle area. It's hard to tell from the architecture of those buildings what movies they could be modeled after. I couldn't really find information, so if you know what it might be modeled after, let me know. But over there is going to be shopping, potentially restaurant and dining as well. That's sort of that experience. But you can also see a water features, clearly visible, sort of a water fountain there right in front, which automatically gives me sort of Gaston's Tavern area with the little sort of, Beauty and the Beast type town there with the buildings and structures, and it's got LeFou out front, or Gaston and LeFou, kind of that fountain out front with the statue. It's kind of giving me those vibes, but maybe obviously a little bit darker than that. Now in the center area, sort of in the middle and over towards the right, you can also see some additional buildings. It sort of changes color a little bit there. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit more silvers and golds there versus the dark blacks and purples of the rest of the park. I think this is going to end up being sort of the dark ride attraction area as you're kind of weaving over, serpentining over to the right there in Villains Land. I think you're going to see this dark ride attraction, which is most likely going to be some sort of trackless experience, like a Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway or like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. They have announced formally there will be 2 attractions. I think it's a safe bet. We see the roller coaster there. I'm pretty sure that building and structure over there is going to end up being the dark ride of some kind. Those are going to be the 2. I don't think we're going to get 2 roller coasters, at least not in phase 1 of Villains Land. And we're going to talk about phase 2 in just a moment. And then the last element of the concept art, if you sort of go all the way over around the bend, what I'm kind of expecting there to be there, based on the position of where Villains Land is going to be, is likely some sort of train station stop. The train does path through there, so it goes from sort of Tiana's Bayou Frontierland area all the way back there through Villains. Probably a safe bet we're going to get a train stop there, and then it's going to then weave its way over to Storybook Circus area, and then that weaves its way all the way back to the front of the park where Main Street is and that particular stop. That's the overall layout from the concept art that I'm getting and the attractions that we're expecting in that space. But now I want to talk about the permits and additional things that we found that indicate we might be getting some expansions like in Villains Phase 2 and some potential other things that I think are really cool. So this graphic that I'm showing on the screen right now is basically an overhead view of all the space around Magic Kingdom, and you'll see all the space over on the left there is currently undeveloped space. And now I'm going to layer on top of it this red sort of area. This is what's referred to as the Stormwater Master Plan. You'll notice it includes all of Magic Kingdom, so all of Magic Kingdom and the surrounding area, all of that space is basically denoted as the Stormwater Master Plan that they're working towards. And the documentation around the Stormwater Master Plan area states that the application requests approval for the Master Concept Plan and authorization to construct the first phase of the proposed Master Concept Plan, as described previously, and related improvements within the basin. But now I want to layer on these orange lines here. So these orange lines are representative of what are referred to as the limits of construction. So this is the most formalized concrete elements of their plan in the near future. So everything they're going to be doing is going to be contained within the orange lines that I have mapped out here, or the red area as well. And now I'm going to lay down this sort of yellow block here, and what that block represents, you'll see it's taking up a portion of that orange space. That represents what they refer to as a gravel laydown area. And basically that is a space where they're going to be putting gravel down and then dumping all of the excavation, moving all of the land, and that's where they're going to be putting it while they're doing all the construction in these spaces. So every bit of land, everything that they're needing to excavate, rocks and everything they're moving out of these spaces, trees, bushes, everything that's going out is going to be put in this gravel laid down area. So that is not going to be used to build new sections of the park. That is going to be used as this sort of dumping ground, if you will, for lack of a better word. But now I want to throw down the blue line that's included in this plan. This blue line represents the total study area for this master plan, for this document. So all the work that they're doing, all the investigation, all of the study that they've done, and looking at the water and the recesses and how it runs off and all the things that they're going to be doing there and measuring the thickness of the moss and all that stuff, is contained in this massive giant blue study area. This is absolutely enormous. And so what's really exciting about this is they wouldn't be looking at all of these areas in this study if they weren't thinking about doing something with this space. Now, to be clear, I said the orange lines is where the initial construction, the concrete things that they're planning on working on and moving things around at, that's the orange lines. But what's exciting is these blue lines is a massive amount of space. In fact, over there on the left side of the image there, that's over 700 acres of space in this study area. 700 acres. Magic Kingdom itself is only 107 acres total, just for Magic Kingdom. 107 acres total. All of the areas of Universal Studios Islands of Adventure and all their hotels in Volcano Bay is only about 700 acres. So that gives you just a taste of how big this space is. So they are clearly gearing up for something. When that will be, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years away, we don't know, but I feel like this study that they're doing, this work on the master plan, is really exciting now because there's so much space there. So looking at all that space, why would they be looking at it? Clearly there's something massive that they're thinking about for that. Could it be a fifth park? I mean, this could easily turn into a fifth park. Can you imagine a side-by-side fifth park, Magic Kingdom, and a fifth park right next door, plenty of space for huge levels of parking in that area, hotels, surrounding space, lots of easy routes to get into that area. It's just a natural extension over there, sort of by Grand Floridian and Polynesian. They're already doing a lot of work on the roads over there anyway. There's also sort of a backdoor entrance area back there from the Windermere neighborhoods. I think it could be really cool. Can you imagine sort of two side by side? Maybe they're connected in some way. Again, taking a page from Universal's playbook when you think about Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure that are sort of connected to each other in this huge city walkscape that all sort of does that. They could easily build that right here in this space. Again, this part I'm talking about, this is all speculation, all wild speculation, but it is really interesting given how large that space is there and that it is part of the study. Again, they're just looking at water runoffs and storm plans and things like that, but there's a reason why it's included in this study. So I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do, but it's getting me a bit excited. So now let's get back to reality and let's zoom in now on the space that we know about for sure that they're gonna be doing construction on in the near future. So again, now that we're zoomed in, just to reorient you, I'm gonna throw up the red master plan. You can see it takes up a lot of the space there. So that's the red sort of stormwater master plan area. And then I'm gonna throw the limits of construction lines back up. So this orange line, again, those are the major pieces that we're thinking about for Villains Land and Cars Land and all those spaces. So first, I'm gonna throw on the Cars Land. So we're gonna throw that up there. We're not gonna talk too much about Cars Land because we've talked about that in other videos, but this is where the Cars Land is gonna be reserved for. It's gonna fill in those sort of orange lines there. Again, as I said, it's orange lines or the red space. It's gonna fill in that sort of central area, filling in Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island. And then directly on top of that, is where we get this sort of, I'm gonna put this purple space up here because that's basically Villains Land. It's gonna be the entrance into the Villains Land. And now that we're oriented, let me remove the orange line so we can see a little bit better. You can see Villains Land is pretty good size. But you'll notice that I've broken it into a couple of interesting areas that you're thinking, huh, where'd you get all this stuff from? Let me cook here. So, Villains Land Phase 1 is what we know about. That's the concept art. That's what's been shown to us. So that's that first space there. But there's a space directly to the side of it that I believe that they are reserving for a Villains Land Phase 2 that's going to be directly connected to it. So we're reserving additional space depending on how well the Villains Land does. They're reserving that as an expansion pad for Villains, so a Phase 2. Similar to Dark Universe is launching, but there's also an expansion pad for Dark Universe, which we've talked about in some of my other videos. If you haven't seen those, I'll link to them below. You're going to want to check them out. Lots of great details about Dark Universe over at Epic Universe. So I do believe that they're holding that expansion pad aside for a Phase 2 for Villains Land. But you might also see a Villains Hotel that's also listed on this screen here. Because I believe they are going to be doing a hotel at some point in the future that is quote-unquote sort of an in-park hotel, most likely going to be themed around villains. There is a ton of space right there that you can easily plant a Villains Hotel there that'll be in park, overlooking the park. It may seem crazy, but I'm telling you, I think we're gonna get it. Now I'm gonna go a little bit further out there now, and you're gonna add this green space in here, because the green space is what I'm thinking is going to be some sort of potential fantasy type hotel or storybook like hotel. So like a Fantasy Springs from Tokyo Sea Hotel, which is an in-park hotel in Tokyo Sea called Fantasy Springs, basically overlooks the park. Again, sort of connected there over by Fantasyland, so some sort of like fantasy hotel here, the Lightside Hotel, an direct entrance into Fantasyland. You've got the Villains Hotel and direct entrance into Villains Land. This makes a ton of sense because Epic Universe is doing in-park hotels with the Helios Grand. You've got Disneyland and California Adventure that sort of have in-park hotels that connect directly into the hotel or into the parks. From what I'm speculating, I think they're going to be adding a hotel or two in that space as sort of an overlooking into the park, direct access into the park. It makes total sense. They'd be crazy if they don't do this. Now, overall acreage wise, the phase 1 Villains Land is about 12 to 14 acres or so, give or take, which is about the same acreage. I think Disney's Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios is about 14 acres. So it's about the same size as Galaxy's Edge there for the Villains Land phase 1. So now let's dig a little bit deeper into the Villains Land itself and the potential layout that we're going to see for Villains Land phase 1. So right there, you've got an entrance near Haunted Mansion. You can kind of see almost like a walkway that goes from Haunted Mansion over to Frontierland over by Big Thunder Mountain. Then you've got that entrance that sort of serpentines through the center of Villains Land and then goes over sort of to the right side, leading over by the train. When you first enter in on the left there, you're going to see some sort of shops or potentially restaurant area over there, as well as maybe the splash pads that I was talking about. Over on the right side of your entrance, additional shopping and things, the sort of little town that you see in the concept art. Directly towards the back and over towards the left is the Villains roller coaster that we talked about. In the center there, you're probably going to see that cavernous area. We'll see how that comes to life. It's probably going to be maybe like a bridging point between Cars Land and Villains Land there, with sort of a dual entrance that goes around. And back there by the roller coaster will be sort of the marquee Maleficent's castle and dragon experience there. And then as you sort of arc over to the right, you can see the train station there and then also the space for the dark ride. So that's what I'm expecting for the overall layout of Villains Land. Well, as we learn more, we will adjust this accordingly, but based on the concept art, based on the permits that have been filed, the stormwater master plan, all the acreage, the layout, where we've been told Beyond Thunder Mountain area, it's going to be back there Beyond Thunder Mountain. I feel like this is going to be the right space here, sort of the right layout. And overall, I'm pretty excited about it. Now, in my last video, I said how I was really not that excited about Villains Land because, I mean, I was excited in theory, but not in what was shown because it felt very blue sky. I still think it's very blue sky. I don't think they have 100% concrete plans for what they're going to do in that space and the layout per se. But I am encouraged by these permits that have been filed and sort of breaking down the numbers and seeing all the big things that they potentially have planned, that they are moving and that they are doing some work. They're definitely not moving land around right now. I haven't seen any bulldozers or land movers yet, but they're definitely thinking about it. They've got some lines drawn, they've got some space reserved. Still, the jury is out on whether or not Cars Land actually ends up where it ends up, or if it ends up somewhere else, because like I said, that's space for the Villains Hotel. They may end up using that for Cars Land as well. They could use that for that space because there's been so much backlash on Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer going away. But overall, I'm a little bit encouraged. I mean, I'm sad to think this is probably 10 years away before we actually get it, but it is kind of exciting to me now that I've kind of been breaking it all down. I don't know, I hope we get it soon, because if it takes 10 years to deliver Disney Villains Land, I think Disney's done. I think that's it. Universal's they're just gonna run away with it, to be honest. If they can get it out quick, and if it resembles the concept art at all, I think it's going to keep them in the game. And I think it's great because they're going to continue to push Universal to be better. Universal's going to continue to push Disney to be better. And we're all winners in that game, because no matter who is on top, we're the winners as the consumers of this stuff, because it is a lot of fun and it's exciting. So anyhow, that's all I've got for us today. I've got some more videos coming out. Be sure to check back. I'm excited about the next one too. It's going to be pretty cool. We're going to do a breakdown of some really cool stuff. It's going to be a return of the Versus episodes, which we haven't done a Versus episode in so long, and I'm pumped about it. So be sure to check back. Like, subscribe, and share. Let me know your thoughts about Villains Land, anything that you've heard, anything you think I've missed or I'm off on, because again, it's so early. I'm not going to be right on everything, but I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I'll give you full credit. Just let me know. Until I see you next time, thanks again for joining us, and the noble way is the easy way. Bye-bye, everybody.